Titanfall released on the Xbox One back in 2014 as a multiplayer-only game, which a lot of people found was a fun yet bare-bones experience. Respawn sets out to right some wrongs here with Titanfall 2, tossing in a single-player campaign and revitalizing the multiplayer component. We're going to count down the good and the bad and find out if Titanfall 2 is truly adding meaningful meat to the bones of its predecessor, or if this is a Titan destined to fall. One of the major absences of the first Titanfall was its presence of any sort of meaningful single-player component. Titanfall 2 aims to fill that void. You play as measly rifleman Jack Cooper with big dreams of becoming an elite pilot, but when your mentor is tragically killed deep behind enemy lines by a whale fire, it's up to you and his recently widowed Titan to join forces and save the frontier from total annihilation. Admittedly, the story isn't going to win any Oscars, but that's just a loose backdrop to tell the real story of rich relationship between rookie pilot and veteran robot overcoming the impossible. The chemistry between the sarcastic Jack Cooper and the dry literal humor of his machine BT-7274 is genuinely charming and creates enough interest to propel the narrative despite the story's shortcomings. But the real winner here is the actual minute-to-minute gameplay of the campaign. Titanfall 2's campaign is stellar. It's a fresh experience constantly keeping you on your toes with ever-changing, unique, and insane scenarios. The maps feature a lot of verticality that adds a certain platforming element to an already tight shooting game, as well as a few over-the-top mechanics that crop up without overstaying their welcome. It's got pitch-perfect pace and it truly soars as a great campaign that's hard to put down.
Funny, BT. You're funny.
Apparently.
But a great campaign is ineffective if it isn't fun to play, and luckily Titanfall 2 is very fun to play. Everything from the brisk pace of the pilot's movements as he gracefully leaps and bounds across the battlefield with slides and wall runs to the empowering feel of the heavy Titans as they decimate puny land forces. It's all tuned perfectly, creating a smooth gaming experience both on land and in machine. The shooting is tight and entertaining due to both the expansively diverse and satisfyingly punchy arsenal and excellent game performance, maintaining a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. Dare I say, Respawn Entertainment has achieved near-action gaming perfection with Titanfall 2's feel. All of that feels just as good in Titanfall 2's multiplayer offerings, with a diverse variety of maps and game modes, including series classics like Attrition and Last Titan Standing to brand new ones such as Pilot vs. Pilot and Bounty Hunt. Coupled with an aggressively rewarding progression system that doles out level ups and unlocks in droves will ensure the experience will remain addictive and capture your interest long enough to unlock that somewhat unattainable camouflage you've been eyeballing for your pilot. All of this made possible by the smooth online servers and matchmaking, ensuring you find a match quickly and typically lag-free.
Oh my god, I'm a million feet in the air.
As great as the campaign is, some of the characters and backstory could have used a little more time. The villains are all rather shallow, cliched archetypes of cheesy action movie villains that felt a little more like roadblocks to cap off levels rather than meaningful characters. The backstory is also left a little bit empty, with characters, factions, and the conflict itself requiring you to have paid attention to the rather weak and somewhat hard-to-follow storytelling of the first game, which prominently featured small picture-in-picture cutscenes and hard-to-follow dialogue in the midst of a chaotic multiplayer match. A con for some and not for all, players are definitely divided on this one, but the game makes some major changes to its established mechanics from the first game. To name a few, the smart pistol is absent as an equipable weapon, Titans no longer regenerate shields, requiring a pilot to collect batteries and then manually insert them, greatly affecting a Titan's survivability. Rodeoing Titans is a much more difficult affair now, as you no longer sit on its back and melt away its health with a weapon or explosive, but instead toss a grenade down a hole and jump off for minuscule damage that needs to be repeated multiple times. The hardcore fans of the first game may feel these changes are unwarranted and frustrating, as it nullifies a lot of popular strategies. This one's a bit of a stretch for a negative point, but Titanfall 2 released 1 week in between two competing juggernaut FPS releases, Battlefield 1 and Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. With Battlefield 1 players still fighting World War I and Call of Duty players just holding out an extra week for space battles, Titanfall 2's player base may be negatively affected and it may have a bit more trouble finding its footing. I understand that they wanted to directly compete with COD, but such a relatively new franchise is a guppy and a tank of sharks, and I feel it may be undeservedly overlooked.
Trust me.
Titanfall 2 was all about forward momentum in every aspect. The breakneck pacing of the campaign, the quick and rewarding progression of the multiplayer, the fluid core gameplay all work together to ensure Titanfall 2 is constantly pushing you forward. The storyline of the campaign won't win any sort of awards, but the moment-to-moment holds some genuinely unique surprises and is definitely a huge highlight. Not to mention the just plain fun, fast and frenetic multiplayer that will remain engaging for quite some time. Titanfall 2 is a complete package, and a triumphant one at that. It's a first-person shooting perfection. It definitely should not be missed. But, should you buy this game? Well, let's break it down. We gave Titanfall 2 a 5 out of 5 stars, give or take. You're going to want to give it a star if the twitch shooting in games like Quake is too fast for you, but games like Call of Duty are too slow. Titanfall 2 lands right in the middle, and you might just find your FPS sweet spot. You're going to want to take a star off of that if you're apprehensive of reasonably smaller new IPs and would rather just stick with the tried and true franchises that all happen to be coming out a week apart. That's the breakdown of Titanfall 2 on Point versus Point. I'm Eddie Campo. And yeah, I still have 200 kilometers of wall running to do. It just doesn't go up.